Honor's Magic V3 or the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. Which one of these flagship foldable phones should you go for? Well, in this video, I have an in-depth comparison to answer that exact question there. I'll be covering their screens, their build quality, the designs of them, photo samples, video samples, side by side, charging time too will be covered, and quite a few other things like storage speed too as well, and even their loudspeakers to let you know exactly which one of these flagship foldables is best at what. So throughout this video, I will be keeping the Honor Magic V3 on the left side of the screen. On the right side of the screen, it will always be the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. So what's included? This is where Samsung completely loses, because this is what you get. You get your Type-C to Type-C cable, you don't get a charger, you don't get a case. But with Honor, you do. Okay, you get a 66-watt charger, you get our Type-C to Type-A cable, and you'll even get this very nice premium case. Now, this case has this pull-out part here, so it acts as a stand too as well. So it's a very nice case that they include. The only thing that's missing is they could have included maybe a stylus as well, but you don't even get that with the Samsung either. The phones, you can see that it's a little different here, that the Honor offers protection for the spine, the Samsung does not. So if you were to drop it and there was a stone sticking out or an edge of corner of a table or something that it landed on, well, that's bad luck, because that's going to damage then the spine, which you don't have that problem here with the Honor. Both of them offer the protection around the front of them, and then they do add bulk, of course. And you see they've got cutouts for both of their buttons, which is fine at the top. Both offering equal protection, apart from, again, the spine is exposed there with the Samsung. And looking at the bottom, the same, there are cutouts there. Now, what I like about the Samsung is you've got the stylus here. That's really good. But then we have that kickstand with the Honor, which is different. So they both have a different approach. But remember, this one's free and comes included. So straight away, when looking at our outer screens here, there is a clear difference. You can see that it's a lot narrower here. The Samsung, the bezels do look a little bit bigger. Well, actually, they're about the same. It's just because they're curved here with our Honor. So we're looking at a difference here of 6.43 inches with the front screen versus 6.3 inches with our Z Fold 6. Now, the Z Fold 6, you can type a little bit better on the screen, but it's not as usable as the outer screen on this one, which is a standard 21:9 aspect ratio, and I just find it to be a lot better. And another thing to note that is, if you're going to be typing on the screen when it's on a table, like now, pressing here, you'll see that the phone is not rocking about. But if you were to do the same, so I was to start to type now, notice how it's going to rock about a little bit, quite a bit actually, because of the camera bump being to one side and not right in the middle. That's just when it's folded, okay? So it's a very little minor thing, but it's something to point out. So we're looking at a big weight difference here. And do you notice it in hand? Well, yeah, actually, yeah, you can. You can feel that, yeah, all right, the Honor does feel lighter. So 226 grams versus here with our Samsung, which is a bit heavier at 239. They did reduce the weight, but can you tell that difference of that 13 grams? It's very hard to tell. And I think if you gave both of these phones to someone and said, hey, which one feels the lightest, it would probably take them a little while to actually figure out which one does feel lighter, but they'll get there in the end. So if we look at the spine in both of them, you can see thickness, massive, massive difference. I mean, we're looking at 9.2 millimeters versus a 12.1 millimeter. So yeah, that's a lot thicker. You can see right there. Look at that difference. It's huge. You really do notice that. And yeah, the cameras do stick out. The Honor camera does stick out a lot more than what we get with the Samsung, but that's a big one. And when you open them up, the thickness of them is even more noticeable. But this is our Honor right here. So we're looking here at 4.4 millimeters, the thickness. And you see that looks very, very thin. And with our Samsung, when it is open, it's 5.6. I mean, 5.6 is still pretty good. But get them side by side. Sorry, my camera is struggling with how thin they are. You can see now, yeah, big difference. So if you like a thin, light device and the thinnest out there, well, this is it. This is, of course, our Honor Magic VS. So fold them together again to have them closed. Fingerprint readers on both. Let's just test out first. I want to test out the Samsung. Okay, I got to press it first. All right, so I'll do that again. All right, press first, then wait. Yeah, okay, and unlocks good. Now, I have that set by default because it was triggering in my pocket, but you can set it just to touch only first, like I do have here with the Honor. So I do the Honor now. Try that again. So I'll just lock it, do it again. Okay, they're both reasonably good, but I wouldn't say that they are both perfect. I have noticed that now and then, as you probably saw in this video, that I have to touch again. So I would rate them both as being 90% chance of the fingerprint readers working. The animation is faster with the Samsung, so it makes it look a bit faster, but they're really about the same. Well, maybe slight edge to the speed being with our Samsung, I think. Do that again. All right, but I got to press in, so I'll do that now. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. They're both the same, but yes, the Samsung, I'd have to say it is a bit faster there. So the volume up and down buttons in different locations and the SIM trays you can see, but they're both made out of metal frames on them. They do feel really good. Both of them have a very, very good build quality to them. The hinges on them I'll get onto shortly when I open them up, show you the internals, but I'm not quite finished here with the designs and what we have here. So loudspeaker grill, different location, microphones, SIM tray with the Honor is located at the bottom. Now, the good news is both of these Type-C ports do support video out. They both have their own desktop modes. We've got Samsung DeX, and then you have the desktop mode there with Honor, and they're very similar to setup, what you can do, and it's just like running a desktop environment, which is great. And you can have clone display too if you want. But what about the outer display brightness? So we have 5,000 nits claimed with the Honor, 2,600 also claimed with the Samsung with those outer screens, and this is them in direct sunlight. And to me, both of them really looked about the same, and that's good. Okay, none of them dimmed down. They seem to be fine and hold this even in the heat in summer in the sun. And now I'm on to finally, yes, those inner displays. Now, the inner displays, the brightness is again quite different in what we're talking about. It claims so 1,800 nits peak is for the Honor. And then we have the 2,600 again for our Samsung. And in direct sunlight, I noticed that at the beginning they were both about the same, the brightness. However, you will see, and I do apologize for this, I've got them the other way round, but you can clearly see which one is the magic. It's dimming down, it has the more rounded looking screen, and it got duller. So in direct sunlight, in the heat, both of them will dull their screens. They eventually start to lose brightness as they heat up, but the display throttling, the brightness throttling took place way earlier on the Honor. So the inner display in direct sunlight gets 1 point less there. You have to say that it's not the winner in direct sunlight. Anyway, both the inner displays, 120 hertz, both of them. Now we have pulse width modulation here of 3,840 hertz with our Magic V3. And it's got HDR10 Plus support. We also have the dynamic, what they call the dynamic LTPO AMOLED 2X display here with Samsung. And it does support that too as well, HDR. And we have Dolby Vision with this. Now, both of the displays are very good. Touch response is also very good. And I noticed that with the Samsung, when you open it up, sometimes it's not completely open because of that camera module. And you have a bit of rocking too when you touch both of them when you're using them, which you can't avoid, unfortunately, because that's just how they are because of their camera modules. There you go. So the fingerprint reader failed a couple of times. Again, there on me, which wasn't good, but that was probably my fault. So Creases, massive difference here. This is, of course, the Samsung, and you'll see that there's quite a huge line there. I'm not too fond of that. Okay, you can really feel it and you can see it. I still think that's quite a bad looking crease. Whereas the Honor probably has the best crease to date now that I have seen in a foldable. So shine the light exactly the same. Look at that difference. I mean, look at it. You can feel it a little bit, but it's nowhere near as bad as the Samsung. Let's get them together again. The best I can. See them? Okay. So if you hate creases, you're not going to like that Samsung because the crease is a bit of an eyesore and you don't really see it. I will say that, not trying to defend them or anything. The Honor's definitely way better with the crease, but you don't really see it when you're using both of them and using them straight on. It's only if you were to hold the phone and look at it at a weird angle constantly would you see the crease, and yes, you do feel it. Now, both of the displays do have stylus support. So we have the S Pen and another stylus that works on the outer screen as well with the Magic. Unfortunately, I don't have it. And you don't get stylus support with the Samsung on the outer screen, unfortunately. So I think that gives the Magic another point because the stylus is going to work on the outer screen. So now I want to briefly talk about their software. So we have Magic OS versus One UI. And I think after using both of these phones now for a significant amount of time, that One UI is a little bit more polished. The performance on both, don't get me wrong here, is very good. And I like how they do perform now. They both have 12 gigabytes of RAM, but you can get the Honor with 16. Samsung doesn't give that option. Now, we both have multitasking on them. See that the scrolling on both seems to be very smooth, perhaps a little bit smoother on the Samsung. And I've got the Apps Drawer enabled on both, and triggering gestures on both of them seems to be very good. The animations do look smooth and fluid. Force them both to 120 hertz, so 120 frames per second. In theory, we should be getting with the UI. So they're both good feature-wise, and everything just loads in about the same. I'm not noticing too much of a difference there, but One UI just, I think, has a few little extras better. It's a little bit more refined, slightly. It makes sense. They've had foldables a little bit longer, and they're really both similar, and you can do the split screens, floating windows and whatnot. So I can just tap here and, well, I'll just start and launch this, and you go into recent apps. So you bring that up, and you just need to tap. Okay, so I can go floating window, and I can do the same, have the floating windows with the Samsung. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I think most of us already know that, and I've already covered it, the multitasking on both of these devices in my full reviews of both. So that's why I don't really want to go too much into depth there. But I think Samsung is slightly ahead with the software. Okay, let's talk about bloatware when you first get them. So we've got Spotify, TikTok, Facebook, and whatnot, and AliExpress, Amazon shipping. They're about the same in terms of bloatware out of the box. There's a bit. However, they seem to double down a little bit, Samsung, with having their own apps too, which are doing the same thing. So their own browser, then you've got Google Chrome as well, and then Microsoft apps. So Samsung does put a little bit more bloatware on there than Honor do. It's just one thing I want to mention. So battery life on both of them, there isn't a massive difference here with the battery life. You can see, even though we've got 5,180 milliamp hours versus 4,400, you would think that the Samsung should be way worse, all right? But it's got a slightly smaller screen, and I think that does have a bit of an impact in the results here that I did get. Both set to the same brightness, both set at 120 hertz refresh rate, and both in their top resolutions as well. So it's a bit of an unexpected result here because I would assume, and I'm sure most people would, that, oh, the Honor would have the best battery life. In fact, it doesn't, and I see this in real-world use. The battery consumption seems to be worse with the Magic V3. You're looking at probably about an hour, not that much, about 45 minutes in real-world use, less runtime than you get with the Samsung, despite the way smaller battery. I know, it doesn't really make sense, but I think it's down to optimization and the software. So here we have the charge time. So an hour and 16 minutes is what our Samsung took at 25 watts, and at 66 watts, the Honor Magic V3 only 49 minutes to fully charge from 2%. That was from 16% too. So I should have actually drained this one a bit more, but we already know that the charging rates with Samsung are low, they're poor, they're pathetic really for 2024. So not good. And the wireless charging is 15 watts versus 50 watts. So big difference. If you're going to wirelessly charge or just charging speeds in general, you want to get the Honor. Okay, internal storage speeds. This isn't a big issue between both of them. Like, you're not going to see this. It's just really in synthetic benchmarks. However, you might see a bit of this. Random read speeds are really good on the Honor compared to the Samsung. We're talking, wow, almost double there. Okay, it's quite a big difference. So it gets a much better score when you check out the storage speeds. Now, the sequential writes are a lot lower too as well with the Samsung, but the reads there's not much of a difference there. The important one is the random access. So when you're installing apps or loading apps, games and whatnot, they really do, especially games, run off that random read speed, which is a lot higher here. So faster storage, bit of a difference there. Wasn't expecting that. A little bit like this, Antutu. So there's a big difference in these scores here. We've got just over 1.5 million points versus 1.38 million. So I did not expect the CPU score here to be so low with the Honor, but it's what the result is, okay? And you can see that the Samsung throttled quite a bit, but this throttled more the CPU side of things, while the GPU performed better. And to be honest, both of these are not really performing that well for this chipset. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in a slab-style phone, say a Honor Magic 6 Pro or the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, will run a lot better than the scores we've got here. So both of them, you can see, throttled quite a bit. We've got down to 53.7% with the Samsung versus 58.5% with the Honor. So the Honor didn't throttle quite as bad, but it's minimal. There's hardly any difference there. When you look at the scores, in fact, the lowest loop is better with the Samsung and the highest too. So the long term, the Samsung is a little bit better. And you'll see this later when I talk about gaming and the throttling. It went up and down a little bit too, the performance with the Honor there. Temperature-wise, Samsung throttles a lot, but it got up to 40 degrees Celsius versus 46. So clearly, the Samsung here is better, has, well, better cooling or doesn't seem to throttle as much. It definitely doesn't feel as hot to the touch either when you game. Although when you look at the frame rates on both, 11 frames per second to 34, exactly the same, 11 to 34 on both. It's just the temperature difference is quite a bit there. And the battery consumption, well, 10% on both too exactly, which is interesting to note there. Now onto something that's, say, a little bit more fun, and that's the loudspeaker sample. But before I start that test, I wanted to mention that haptics, best on the Samsung, is just a little bit stronger, those pulses. I prefer it. And maybe it's because the Honor is so slim that the motor isn't as powerful. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And then the call quality on both of them with their earpieces at the top, really, I don't hear that much of a difference. Maybe the Samsung a little bit better. Now I'm going to give you this speaker sample. First I'll play the Honor, then the Samsung, and we'll have a listen to which one sounds the best. And then I'll let you know what I think sounds the best, being here in person, of course, with them. Okay, there's not too much of a difference, but it is the Samsung that's slightly louder and a little bit richer sounding too, just a tad more bass. So if you want the best speakers and a fraction better call quality and definitely better haptics, it's the Samsung. So I'm waiting to download the game here, and this is when you can see the big difference in these screens. Just have a look at how much more glary and more noticeable the creases here with our Samsung versus the Honor. And no, I've not adjusted my lights to make it look worse, because if I swap their position, you're going to see it's exactly the same. See? All right? It's not me. Someone criticized me in my Vivo comparison with the X Fold 3 Pro that I made the Samsung intentionally look worse. Trust me, I've got better things to do in my life than do silly things like that. But you can see now side by side, the Samsung's always going to come off looking just worse, especially in this lighting with that ugly crease. So focusing on that game performance, having tested out both of them now, I'm testing what I think is the winner here, although I have two separate different accounts in different areas of the map, so it's not entirely fair. I have found that it is this Samsung Z Fold 6 that overall has fewer frame dips when set to the highest visual settings here with Genshin Impact at 60 frames per second. The Honor Magic V3, I did note that it would stutter more. You'd have more frame dips just now and then, but both of them game about the same. It's still very, very playable. But if you're really fussy about your frame rates and you hate to see frame dips when you've got big boss battles and whatnot happening, then it's the Samsung here that I think is the better one at gaming. Now onto the cameras. First up is the video performance with the Honor Magic V3 and our Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. Outer cameras here, so they're looking at, both of them we're looking at here, 4K 30 frames per second that they can film with their outer cameras. Quality does seem to be, well, I'm noticing already a bit of a difference here. And I've done a lot of testing on this. I think the Samsung has the edge with the video quality, but let's take a look at the rear cameras. ultra-wide cameras, and we get a wider field of view with our Samsung. It just fits a little bit more in the shot, I can see that. And the colors on both of them, there's slight difference there between them. I do think it's the Samsung video. Having looked at this already on my PC, some other footage that I've taken, I think it has the edge over the Honor here with the video quality at least. So we'll go over to the main cameras now on both of them. Again, it does seem that, yes, the Samsung has a wider field of view. So both of them are 50 megapixel cameras using optical image stabilization. Go over to their optical zoom cameras now. So 3 times is the preset here we get with the Samsung, when it's 3 times optical. And we get 4 times here with the Honor, but the Honor is 3.5 times optical zoom. Now I'm going to walk just a little bit, just a tiny bit, just move to test out that optical image stabilization and which one looks the steadiest here. And now apply a little bit of digital zoom, but not a lot. I'll take it up to now 6 times here with the Honor and 6 times with our Z Fold 6. Okay, so they're looking, now I can see a bit of a difference here in the quality of them. I think here the Samsung video gain is slightly better. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Oh, and the Samsung also has 8K video that the Honor does not have. So if you wanted to film in 8K, high resolution, get a little bit more in terms of details, well, you have that option with the Samsung. Very quickly, this is now low light video, obviously, quite dark. Frame rate on both of them seems to have dropped a little bit, possibly seeing a few drop frames. And what about how do these phones handle lens flaring or seeing any of that kind of move about lens flare effect on the screen? Just saw a little bit before. And which one do you think here is the best at night video, low light video, with the Magic V3 and the Z Fold 6? First up is portrait shots with our outer screen cameras. Now, the Samsung, I think the skin tones look a little bit more pleasant, don't you? I know it's all subjective here, but it seems a little too light with the Magic, and the stitching with the Samsung and the background blur, I do like the way it looks. I think overall it's just a more pleasant selfie shot. With this shot here with the main cameras, both of them are kind of losing out in a way because the Magic didn't get the colors right of Snow's face. It's a little too dark. And then the Samsung has a lot of noise with indoor shots. You can see it, there's this grain to it, which I just don't like. The next shot is very difficult for any phone. What I'm trying to get here is the maximum amount of those red shades with this very bright red hibiscus flower in direct sunlight. Now, no matter what preset I use, the Honor just tended to clip those reds a little more than the Samsung. So I think the Samsung shot here is better. Ultra-wide photos, it is the Samsung that has a wider field of view, and the Honor has more realistic colors with this shot. It's more true to life, and this is using the authentic preset. And with our zoom cameras, I could show you 10 samples and it would always be the same story here. That's why I'm just showing the one, because there's no point. The zoom camera with the Honor is sharper, captures more detail. I find it to be better, and this is definitely noticeable when I use 10 times on both. You can see the difference now. And note the Samsung has a lot of noise with this sensor. It's the same as the main camera too. Indoors you see this noise. The Samsung sensors are a little bit dated and they're quite noisy. With the night shots, it's the same kind of story too. You see a lot more noise in the sky with the Samsung photos. And I do like the fact that with the Honor, the night sky looks black as it should. With the Samsung, it doesn't really. Now, you can see in this shot, yes, the Magic V3 has muddied up the sky a little bit, but overall, I think it's better. So if you're looking at low light performance and then zoom shots, definitely the Honor is the best. Which one has the best screens, inner and outer? I think it goes to the Honor. However, in direct sunlight, the inner screen of the Honor, as we did see, would start to dim down a lot sooner, quite a bit quicker than the Z Fold 6 from Samsung. Now, the design of them, I don't think that's a very hard one to pick. That the best design, the slim frame, the best weight of 226 grams, is the Magic V3. So it's the lightest, it's the thinnest, it also has the best crease, and it picks up the least and fewest amount of screen reflections, which is very important, I think. If you use these a lot indoors, you want the clearest, brightest looking screen. So that's the Honor. Now, when we talk about the battery life, this was a bit of a surprise here because we have the 5,150 milliamp hours silicon battery from Honor versus 4,400 milliamp hours. So quite a bit smaller, but a slightly smaller screen. And I did do that test with the inner screens, which I am showing you now, of course. And yeah, there was a difference of about an hour. And when you use them in just general kind of use, I'm also seeing this, that the battery life seems to be better with the Samsung, seems to be better optimized the UI to extend the battery life, even having both of them set to the highest refresh rates with them. Charge time, well, that's very easy, isn't it? It was the Honor with the 66 watt charging versus 25. It also has 50 watt wireless charging, the Honor. This only has the 15 watt wireless charging. So Samsung's definitely falling behind in the hardware and the design of their phones. But what about the software, the UI? So I think after using both of these now for some time, that it is one UI that gets the win. I find it's just slightly better optimized, has a few more features, and just seems to be better for foldables, that UI versus Magic OS, which is not bad. It's getting a lot better and the gap is definitely closing. Loudspeakers, the Samsung was better. It had the richer sounding, slightly louder speakers. And then the camera quality, well, video went to Samsung. Audio quality, I think, went to Samsung with their microphones. And the cameras, they can trade blows, but they were very close there. So let me know in the comments, which one of these would you pick? Would you go for the Magic VS, or would you stick with Samsung, who's been around for longer, yes, with the foldables, and go for their Fold 6?